This is very a little bit of a technical Gemara, a lot of psukim and limudim. Um, we are on Nun Dalet Amud Aleph, uh, five lines from the bottom of the narrow lines.
Mhm.
Amar Rami Bachama.
Okay.
Amar Rami Bachama. Hari Amru. Hene hekdesh ene mischal la karka. Hekdesh cannot become chalal. You can't be mechalal. If you have something you makdish, let's say you makdish, a can of Coke to hektish. It's not really much use. It has to be mischal. You have to change it for something else, and then the other thing could be used by hektish, and the Coke becomes choil. But you cannot use karka as the thing that you're using to be mechal hektish. The Torah says in Asan Kesef, it gives Kesef a kamle, and then that becomes Kaidish. So it has to be something similar to Kesef, something that can become Kaidish. So that excludes everything other than that excludes Karka. Even though it uses Kesef, it doesn't mean only Kesef. Taisus explains that it doesn't mean specifically, it doesn't mean that it has to be, but Kesef means anything other than Karka. Chaim Shai, so we said this is the din of the actual object or money that you're using to be mechalal hektish. But we said before that when you're mechalal hektish, you have to add on a chaimish. What's the din? Chaim Shai ma'ishiz chalal karka. Does this din that you can't use karka to be mechalal hektish, does that apply also to the extra chaimish that you have to add on? That's one question that we have about chaimish. Another question: Truma in a In addition, when someone consumes truma, someone's a zar and he consumes the truma that really should go to a kain, he also has to pay a chaimish. So truma ein mishtalam is element achulin. When you have to pay back for consuming truma, if you're a zar, you have to that has to be paid back from chulin. You have to take something. The Rahman Am is a kaddish that you give to the kain the kaddish. If someone, this is the pasuk I'm talking about. Ishki yochel kaddish bishgaga. If someone eats truma bishgaga, he has to add on a chaimish, and he has to v'nasan l'kain es hakodesh. So he dash and davar haroy is kaddish. He has to take something that's a fruit or something that could become truma. That's what he uses to replace the truma that he, by mistake, consumed. So the question is, does this din also apply to the chaimish? This is a series of three questions that we're going to ask. Does the chaimish that you have to add on when you're mechal, when you have to pay for something, does it have the same din as the principal, as the keren? Meiser, ein meschal asiman. Another, this is a din that we've come across before. Meiser shein, you have to use money to be mechal, right? If someone wants to bring his meiser into shleim, he could switch it into money, but it has to be money. It can't be mechal al asiman. We said before, an asiman, we said that was a slug of metal, a round slug of metal that's supposed to get a picture on it, supposed to be minted, but it hasn't yet had it done. So it has the value, but it's not yet become currency. So the Rachmana Amvetzata Kesabiadechel, L'ral Labas called of a Shiesh Love Tzura. We learn from the pasuk that Sarta Kesabiadecha use the Lashon Tzura. It has to have something that has a picture on it that it's minted. So this din also, what does this din that you have by Meiser Sheni also apply to this asima, to this shaped round thing that doesn't have the tzura, the picture, it's not minted. So all these three questions are similar ideas. Do we apply the same din when you are mechalal? The first case was hekdesh or truma or meiser sheni. Do we apply the same dinim that would apply, the restrictions that apply to being mechalal or being paida, the Karen, the original thing, does that also apply to the chaimish? Is galgal milsa motal kamei the Rav? This question came to Rav. Amalahu, Amar Kra Olav. The word the Torah used the word Olav. The Rav is chamshe kamaisa. It's coming to tell you that the chaimish does have the same thing. So all these things, the answer is going to be the same. That the chaimish will have the same restrictions when you have to pay an additional chaimish. It has the same restrictions as the amount that you're paying for the karen. Amravina, Avanana mitnino, hagoynev truma v'le achla. Someone who steals truma and he doesn't eat it, right? We said before that there's a din legabe truma that if you consume it, that it has to be paid back with peiros, with something peiros chulin that can become truma. So, but if someone stole truma and he didn't eat it, he just took it. Mishalm tashlumi kefel. He pays the kefil. When you steal something, you have to pay kefil. Demei truma, and he pays kefil the amount of the truma. Achla, but if he also ate it, if he stole it and ate it, mishalom shnei karanim, he has to pay double, basically the two kefils according to the original amount that he stole. V'chaimish karen, v'chaimish, and he has to pay in addition. He pays double the amount, plus he has to pay a chaimish of the original amount. Like we said, if someone eats by mistake truma, he has to pay an extra chaimish. He doesn't have to pay a chaimish on the kefil. He only pays on the original amount that he stole. So for the gzela, he pays double, and for the fact that he ate the truma, he pays an extra chaimish. So b'shalom shnei kanayim v'chaimish karen. Karen, and we say, what does that mean? Karen v'chaimish minachulin. The karen, the original amount, has to be from chulin, because since he ate it, you have to pay, like we said according to Rava, that the chaimish has the same din as the karen, and when you eat it, you have to replace it with produce that's capable of becoming truma. Karen demei truma. And the karen just has to be money. That doesn't have that. There's no such rule that when you steal, it has to be limited to paying with something that can become truma. Shmamina chamshe kamaisik shmamina. The Gemara says so. As we see from Yataka, the din of Rava. Amar Rava. Gabi Gezel. It says the Gabi Gezel, which we had back in Bava Kama in great detail, that someone who steals and is asked, Reuven steals from Shimon, and then Shimon takes Reuven to Bezdin. He says, Reuven, did you steal from me? And Reuven says, no. So Shimon says, I want you to make a shvua, or he volunteers to make a shvua, whatever the case is. It might be nafkaminas, but anyway, he makes a shvua in Bezdin that he didn't steal, and then in the end, Reuven is ma'ida that he did steal. So there's a din that he has to bring karen chaimish v'yashim. He has to pay back the full amount plus a chaimish, and he has to bring an ashim. So Gabi Gezel ksiv chamishi soy Yosef alav. He has to add on a chaimish. Shutnan nasan lo as a karen. If he gave him the karen, right, he stole it, so he has to pay back the karen. But nishba loy al chaimish, and then he made a shvua on the chaimish. It means he owes him now a karen and the chaimish, because he had sworn falsely about the gzelas. Now he owes an additional chaimish, and now when it comes time to pay, he paid back the principal. The guy says, "Oh, you owe me also a chaimish because you swore falsely." And the guy goes back. He's a recidivist. He goes and swears that he already paid him back the chaimish. The nishbalei chaimish. Harezech moisef chaimish al chaimish. He has to pay an additional chaimish on the chaimish that he swore falsely about. And then what happens? And so the Gemara says, if he continues doing so then he finally pays back the chaimish, the original chaimish, but he doesn't pay the fifth of a fifth that he has to pay now. He can keep doing that until finally he's making a shavua. He keeps on swearing falsely about the chaimish that keeps getting added on. It's like the DMV. The DMV sends you a parking ticket and adds on the penalty. and you say, I'm just paying the penalty, I'm paying what I owe, I'm paying my parking ticket, but I'm not paying the penalty. So then they make you a penalty because you're late paying back the penalty. This is what happened. He kept on being stubborn about paying the penalty and lying about it. And then he would have to, in the end, he would admit that he owed it, and then he'd have to pay another chaimish on top of it. So you keep doing that until the amount of the penalty, since it's only a fifth, at some point, pretty quickly, exponentially, it's going to be less than a pruta. If you keep dividing something by a fifth, you pretty soon you're going to end up with less than a pruta. So that's what we say gabi gazel. Gabi truma ksiv ish ki yochel kodesh b'shkaga v'yosef chamishisoi olav. When a person eats, like we said on Amud Aleph, if a person eats kodesh, if he eats truma b'shkaga, he has to give an extra chodesh. He has to pay keren v'chodesh. Doesn't make a difference how he consumed it, whether by eating or drinking or smearing it on himself. Echad truma tahira v'echad truma tamei. It makes no difference if the truma is tar or tamei. V'shalom choimsha. V'choimsha. The choimsha, and he also has to pay a fifth of a fifth. It means if he continues going on and he then replaces it with he makes some new produce and makes it become truma, and then he goes ahead and eats that chaimish, he has to do it again until it reduces down to a pruta. So this is, we had both legabi gezel and we had legabi truma, but we know there's also a chaimish of ma'aser sheni, which is how we started this whole sugya. We're talking about the chaimish of ma'aser sheni. There's no pasuk that tells you that you continue doing a fifth of a fifth if someone was machal his ma'aser sheni on money, and then that money became kodesh, became hegdish of ma'aser sheni, and if he uses it outside Yushalayim, he has to pay an additional fifth. There's no such possible. There's no mission for it. We don't even ask it as a question. What's the din of a fifth of a fifth? So tomorrow, what about gabe hektish? What's the din of hektish? You makdish something, right? We covered gabe truma, and we covered gazel, and we said ma'aser sheni. What about hektish? Hektish also has a din that when you're mechalel hektish, you have to add on a fifth. If someone was makdish his bias, and so we said that there's a din that it could be mechul. But if the owner was makdish it, if hektish sells the house, the owner has to pay an additional fifth. It says if he's the one who's goyal his base, Yosef chamishis kesef ekacha. He has to be meisif a chamishis, a fifth of the kesef of its worth. Utnan hapoides hekdesha meisif chaimish. And it says he has to be meisif chaimish. Chumsha tnan, chumsha de chumsha loitnan. Doesn't say anything about adding on a fifth on the fifth. If he continues afterwards, he's makdish what became kodesh in place of the house. There's no din of chaimish to chaimish. Excuse me. So what's taka the din? It doesn't say anything about it. So what's the din? It says v'yosef. Gabi kodesh nami hakseh v'yosef. Do you say, since it says the lashon of v'yosef with the extra vav, so that tells you that they're both the same, that you are going to be add on as many times as necessary, a fifth of a fifth, and hektish will not be any different than truma. It says the vav ishakaltu le'levav de v'yosef v'shadisule al chamishisay havale chamishisov. The way it works is there's a certain type of lima that we can do where we take an extra letter and we add it on to another word in order to darshan it. So we're going to add it on to the end of the word of chamishisav, chamishisai. By adding another vav, it becomes chamishisav, which is a lashon rabbin, which is mashma more than one chaimish. So that's how we learn it by truma. It's not just that it's v'yosef, that's what That's where we learn it out, but by adding it to the end of the word chamishisai. So gabe hektish klivi Yosef chamishis without a vav at the end. If you add a vav to the end of chamishis, which is still a lashon yachid. So therefore, maybe we wouldn't learn out by truma from the extra vav that it should mean a chaimish to chaimish. Correcting them up. So maybe that's the shot. The typically, let's say we could learn it out from a different limud. The typically the hamelek hekdesheni. Let's say that when you're machalal, when someone gives hekdesh to the Beis Hamikdash, he's makdish something, and then he is paid it from hekdesh. The thing that he gave in place of the original hekdesh becomes hekdesh sheni. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, a hekdesh rishon ma'asav chaimish, a hekdesh sheni ein ma'asav chaimish. When you use something to replace the original hekdesh, you're not ma'asav chaimish. So that seems to indicate that what was used to replace the original hekdesh does not have a din that it can make a chaimish. So that we would say it's not like truma and ma'asav sheni and all these things that we said have a din of chamishav. That you chaimish chaimish, you can do a fifth of a fifth. Amar Pablo Avini hachay amar Rava chaimish ketchilas hagdishtam. He says that no, Rava holds. He doesn't hold like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says. He says chaimish ketchilas hagdishtam. It's treated like the first thing that became hagdish. When you replace something. When you use the var was saying we were saying is when you replace it, you have to add on a chaimish. So the chaimish has the same din as the thing that replaced it. And Bishua ben Levi said that the thing that was used to replace the original hegdish does not have a din to be makdish. But the Gemara says that's not a raya legabe the chaimish. He holds that the chaimish that you add on, which is strange, it's never been like this before. But he says the chaimish is like the original hegdish. Since it's the first time that this thing is becoming hegdish, right? There's a din of when you replace something that's hegdish, when you repaid it, if you will makdish it, and now you're replacing it with something else, and now that new thing is going to become hegdish. So that second thing has a din of hegdish sheni, which doesn't have the ability itself, doesn't have the din of chaimish. We're saying the chaimish is not the same thing as what was replacing the keren. It's a new thing, it's added on. So it has a din of something that's original hegdish. And therefore, that's why Rava has the question, doesn't have the din that could also make a chaimish. My hobby, Allah. So we're still left with the question. It's not clear. Even if it's a chaimish, it still is a different type of chaimish. It's a chaimish. Even if it's a hegdish rishon, it's a new hegdish rishon, so maybe it doesn't have the din that it can make a chaimish. Amar Rav Tuvim Mishrei Dabaya, Amar Krav Yesef Chamishas Kesef Erkacha. Makash chaimish lekesef erchay, or makash lechaimish to the original money. Makesef erchay ma'asav chaimish. Just when you're doing the original amount, when you're replacing the original amount that you were makdish, you have to be ma'asav chaimish. Av kesef chaimish shenami ma'asav chaimish. So too, when you add it on, you also have to add a chaimish. Okay, gufa. Amr Yeshua ben Levi. We said that Yeshua ben Levi says that you only add on a chaimish on hekdesh rishon, but not what became hekdesh after you were paida. The hekdesh, that new hekdesh, does not have a din of ma'asav chaimish. Amar over my time the Yeshua ben Levi. Where does this come from? Amar kra the makdish yidel is beisay hamakdish will have matbis. The Torah says, when the makdish is going to be goyel's base, so that then he has to add on a chaimish. Hamakdish will matvis. Only that he was makdish originally, but not that which replaced it. So that tells you that it's only the original and not hekdesh rishon and not hekdesh sheni. Tani Tana kamei the rulas the behema tmeya. If you're makdish a behema tmeya, which cannot be bought as a carbon, upada be'erkacha, you have to be paid it with its value. So we learn out ma behema tmeya miyuchedesh, just like a behema yucheda, behema tmeya has this din. Shetchilasei hegdish. When you makdish it, it's always going to be it's hegdish from the beginning. That it has a din of hegdish rishon, the kula l'shamayim, and it's kula shamayim, umayilamba. It's all when you makdish something, it's going to be what does that mean again? Right, that it's not going to become a carbon. A carbon is a din, right? You can be makdish something as a shlomim, and the shlomim part of the animal could be eaten by the owners. But a behemoth tmei can't be born as a shlom. It can't be born as any kind of carbon. So therefore, it's going to be kula shemayim. There's not going to be anything that you can consume of it. Anything that has these characteristics of a behemoth tmei is going to have the din. They can be mile in it. So, in fact, the Gemara, mile means that if you use it, you're going to be chayiv me'ilah, which is you have to bring an asham. He has to pay it back, and he has to give a chaimish, and he has to bring a carbon asham. You say that it's kula shamayim, like we said, lemuti kachim kalim. Unlike, like we said, a shlomim or a carbon that is something that the owner gets from it. Even the islu l'bayla b'gabayu, since they get some of the meats, less bul mila, so it doesn't have a din of mila. El tchilas hektish, lemute mai. What are you saying that anything that has tchilas hektish doesn't have mila? Tchilas hektish would is be mila, seif hektish less be mila. Something that's not mila is anything that's hektish. Doesn't make no difference whether it's the original thing that was mahoktish or something that replaced it. There's a din mila on it. So what does that mean to say? So
I'm sorry. So kochum kalim don't have a din of meila at all.
No, I don't think so. I think meila is on kachim, like a mincha or a. I think there are times. I think there might be times in which even kachim kalim have meila. I'm not sure, but it certainly seems to be the meaning of it at this point.
So if someone has, let's say, a korban pesach, and
you're allowed to have hana, right? How could it be that there's no hana from kachim kalim? If you're allowed to eat part of it, how could it have a din meila? It could be that before you bring it as a carbon, before you separate the parts, right? Before you bring the dam on the mizbech, I seem to remember there's a din of meila on it. But I think once you do the avodah, so you're allowed to eat from it. So how could it have a din meila that you're not allowed to be nana from it if you're allowed to eat parts of it? You're saying you would have assumed that there's meila on the parts that you can't eat, the parts that have to go on the mizbech.
I'm saying, yeah, it's a korban pesach. Let's say if you eat it outside of Yerushalayim, so isn't there? That's not a meila.
That's not meila. That's a kachei chutz. That's you eating it outside of its place, which is not a din meila.
So it's something else.
I think so. I can't promise because I when I'm not in kachim, I'm not in kachim, so I don't remember.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
I don't think from this Gemara, it certainly doesn't seem like that. Let's see Rashi. Yeah. Boiling ba. Hashik saytak lamilas mamish kama. V'loy efshalei lo'ok hag the kra loy b'miila mishtoi. But I feel less gabal kol hani shaycham miila in hektish. That doesn't really say about your question. Zok to Gemara, okay. Zok to Gemara, Dilma, the Indian Chaimish comment. My answer is no. Maybe I'm just saying it legabi the din of Chaimish. Means even though we called it Meila, we're not really referring to the din of Meila because Eina Chanami, it wouldn't make sense. Obviously, Hektish Sheni of Kachi Kachim does have a din Meila. It's something legabi the Indian of Chaimish. Okay, Bishul and Levi. Amli in Hachiko Amina. He says, yeah, that's what I meant. I didn't mean the actual din of Me'ilah. I meant a version of, when I said Me'ilah, I was talking about the din of Chaimish. I'm saying it still has the din of Chaimish, but Ein Achanami is the din of Me'ilah will apply. Let me take a look. Yeah, I'm gonna have to stop here. I'm sorry. I would have liked to finish to the Mishnah. Okay, shkoyach. Have a good day, and I'll try to send something later about the plans for tomorrow. For you, it makes sense to